And then you want to write a compelling subject line. You want to say something along the lines of, so nice to meet you at Fancy, following up from our conversation at Fancy, or media dietitian following up from Fancy. You want something that's going to jog their memory of who you are, and also something that will make them excited to open up your email. Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of the Master the Media podcast. I'm your host, Amy Gorin, and I am so excited to be here with you today. We are going to dive into today's topic, which is how to follow up with brands that you connect with at a trade show like the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Food and Nutrition Expo, also called Fancy, which just happened. So before we dive into that, I want to just tell you guys that if you want to join our free upcoming masterclass, which is happening in just 1 week, the topic is how to land $50,000 in paid brand partnerships in 6 months as a healthcare professional. You can grab your free seat at masterthemedia.co/masterclass. All right, so now we're going to talk about trade shows. And I actually just finished a coaching call with my Master the Media students where we spent a whole hour talking about how to prep for Fancy. So I want to talk with you guys about how to follow up after you meet with brands. And this really could be relevant for if you're attending an expo at a trade show, if you went to an event where there were brands present and you want to know how to follow up with them. So let's talk about it. And the way I like to approach these things is, first, if you're going to a trade show and it's your first time, focus on getting ready for that and kind of figuring out, like looking at the expo floor plan and figuring out, okay, which of these brands are my priorities to meet with, and kind of figuring out, okay, I'm going to do this part of the trade show on this day, this part on this day, because some of those trade show floors are like huge. And instead of going from one end to the other and back and forth, it makes sense to kind of section off part of the expo to conquer all at once. And then I like to tell my students too, you can reach out to some of the brands and see if you can secure meetings with them ahead of time. If not, it's totally fine while you're at the expo to just go up to a brand and start a conversation with them. But I want to spend more time talking about what to do after you've met with the brands at a trade show or at an event. And this is also really relevant for, during Fancy, Master the Media hosted an event with 4 brand sponsors: Organic Valley, the National Pork Board, USA Pulses, and Country Life Vitamins. So this also is relevant for if you're, following up after attending that event. So the first thing, and this is probably obvious, but I'm just going to say it, is you should follow up with the people that you meet at conferences, at expos, because if you don't, all your work that you did of networking and connecting with them is going to be a waste, because the likelihood, they might still reach out to you, but it's like if you went on a job interview, you would send a thank you note, right? You wouldn't just wait for them to email you and say, hey, we're offering you the job. So think of it like that. If you go on a date with someone you really like, you want them to reach out and ask you for a second date rather than just waiting and just kind of seeing what happens. Okay, so when you are meeting with a brand, let's just use Fancy, the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo, as the example. So when you're at the booth, you're talking to the person, to a brand representative. It could have been, sometimes brands will have their marketing person there. Sometimes they'll have their public relations person. Sometimes they'll even have a salesperson at the booth. Whoever you talk to, even if they're not the quote unquote right person for you to connect with for a paid brand partnership, when you're there in person, you can ask, like say you're talking to a salesperson, you can say, who would be the best person for me to follow up with to discuss brand partnerships or to discuss how we can work together as, with me as a media dietitian. And you can ask for that contact information for, say you're talking to the salesperson. So then you're asking for the contact information for the communications or the marketing or the public relations person. Sometimes they have those different titles. Or say you are talking to the right person, it's that PR person or the communications person or the marketing person. Ask them for their business card. That is the easiest way to get their information. You also want to give them your business card because yes, you will have a badge that can be scanned and they'll get your information that way. But a lot of times, like if you give them your business card, and I always tell my Master of the Media students, have a business card that has your photo on it so that you're really easily recognizable. Even if they don't remember everything that you talked about, they're looking at their stack of business cards after the event, they see your picture, they're like, oh, Amy, oh, Heather, I remember that conversation because your picture jogs their memory. So you have their information, they have your information. What you don't want to do is follow up like the minute that the conference ends, because you have to give these people a chance to get home, get situated, get back to work, catch up on their inbox, and then start being like, okay, who did we talk to at Fancy? Who did we talk to at this conference? Who are we interested in potentially working with? So I would wait about a week. It could even be a week and a half, so 7 to 10 days after the conference ends. What you can do, and I love to schedule emails, you can write the email when you get home, when you're excited, when it's fresh in your mind, and you can schedule the email to go out on a later date. I like to send any kind of emails that you're sending out to discuss potential work. I like to send them out Tuesday to Thursday, the middle of the day. So say 11 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. Mondays, people are getting caught up, they're busy. Friday, sometimes people go on vacation, they want to get out of the office early. First thing in the morning, they're, catching up on things. And at the end of the day, they're trying to get out of the office. So kind of that middle time is the best time to follow up. And then you want to write a compelling subject line. You want to say something along the lines of, so nice to meet you at Fancy, following up from our conversation at Fancy, or media dietitian following up from Fancy. You want something that's going to jog their memory of who you are, and also something that will make them excited to open up your email. You don't want to say something super generic. So once you send that email, and in that email, we talked about subject lines. In the body of the email, you want to remind the person where you met. So in this case, you met at Fancy, who you are, give a quick elevator pitch, like 1 to 2 sentences. Don't, the last thing you want to do is have too much information there so that they don't read it. So a quick elevator pitch for me, it could be something like, as a reminder, or hi, so-and-so, it was so nice to meet you at Fancy and to learn all about your brand's new products. I really look forward to trying X. As a reminder, I'm Amy Gorin. I'm a plant-based registered dietitian nutritionist. I work with brands and as a spokesperson and as a consultant to help them get the word out about their products through media interviews and podcast episodes and X, Y, and Z. You could list out like, media events, Instagram reels, things like that. If you have anything really unique that sets you apart, you can bring that to the table as well. So for instance, if the brand and I had talked about how they want to reach more dietitians, I could say something along the lines of, I also run Master the Media, where I work with media dietitians and health professionals to get them featured in the media. And I have a list of 15,000 media dietitians. So if you wanted to get the word out about your product, one of the ways that we could partner would be by sending out a sponsored newsletter blast to that audience. And by the way, my open rate is 40%. You could say something like that. You also, if you have been featured in the media, throw that into, because that is going to also set you apart. I've recently been featured in Eating Well and Parade and AARP, giving nutrition advice to the masses about my favorite products. And then you could give a few brief ideas. Maybe you had discussed these ideas in person, maybe you're bringing them to the table now. I wouldn't give like paragraphs and paragraphs of how you could work together, but you just threw in a few ideas when you were talking about that newsletter, for instance, but you could throw in a few more ideas. If it's something like, I really enjoyed learning about your new healthy frozen meals. I have some ideas for how I could help you get the word out about them. I know that we discussed a sponsored podcast episode. I also think it would be really helpful to do a sponsored webinar where I invite my fellow health professionals and talk to them about my experiences with your product and why it's something that they should consider recommending to their patients. And we can promote that webinar through my private Facebook community for Master the Media. We can promote it through my newsletter list for Master the Media that goes out to health professionals. And we can also cross promote that on social media. And so I'd also love to discuss any other ideas. Would you have time for a quick Zoom chat? And then you can give a few suggestions of times that you're available. So instead of just like leaving it open-ended, give them something tangible. I am available next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Would one of those times work for you? And then send or schedule. And then you're going to want to wait. They might not get back to you before, next Tuesday that you threw out. And this is something I was actually talking to one of my students about today, where she was like, I pitched brands last week and I haven't heard back. It is normal to not hear back from a brand for like 4 to 6 weeks. So don't stress if you don't hear anything back right away. You might, and that's awesome. But I like to keep a spreadsheet of all of the brands that I reach out to. You can put the brand, what you're following up on, the person you reached out to, their email address, the date, and then put a calendar reminder in your calendar for 4 to 6 weeks from the point at which you sent your email to follow up again. Because remember, like, this person that you're emailing is returning from a huge trade show where they probably talked to hundreds, if not more than that, dietitians, health professionals, and they are going to get slammed with a lot of emails, including yours, which is great, but it might take them even a while to find yours in that whole stack. And hopefully, yours is going to stand out and they're going to hopefully get back to you. But if not, in 4 to 6 weeks, you can follow up. And that, in a nutshell, is how you follow up after a trade show. I hope that these tips will help you get some traction with landing some brand partnerships with the brands that you've talked to at trade shows. And as a reminder, we are hosting a free masterclass next week on how to land $50,000 in paid brand partnerships as a healthcare professional. You can go to masterthemedia.co/masterclass to grab your spot. And if you're listening to this episode after that masterclass has taken place, it's taking place October 22nd, you can go to that URL and we'll send you the replay if you sign up. So I'll see you there.